Welcome back to episode 3 of Cut to the Chase, where ideas take flight. I'm your host, Chase Dillon, and today we have some special guests from the University of Kentucky.
Hey everyone, my name is Lily Davis.
I'm Savannah Morris, so glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Hi, I'm Nate Welsh. Thanks for having me here, Chase. Great to be here.
Hello everyone, I'm Clayton Horde. Thank you for having me on today, Chase.
Hi, I'm Allie McDougall, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Chase.
In today's episode, we're going to be discussing overconsumption in fast fashion and the effects it has on the environment and our mental health. First, it's important to define what fast fashion is and overconsumption. It's when we continuously buy cheap clothes to follow the ever-changing trends and then discard it only after a few uses and then creating a vicious cycle.
Typically, online fast fashion is more affordable and obtainable, which draws the younger generation close. This generation doesn't know a world without social media, which is where the vicious cycle of overconsumption most commonly takes place. Each day, brands like ASOS and Shein put thousands of new items on their website, giving the consumer many options to choose from.
There's constantly a new hot item or trend that we want to get our hands on. Clothing sales doubled from 100 to 200 billion units a year, while the average number of times a garment was worn decreased by 36%. These are two facts that embody fast fashion.
The consumer is typically unaware of how harmful their shopping patterns can be. In this episode, we're going to dive into how your overconsumption shopping habits negatively impact your mental health and the world around you.
The fast fashion industry is intentionally designed to keep you, the consumer, coming back for more and more. It is up to you to decide if you want to make a change for the better.
First-hand experiences are pretty important with this type of stuff, so let's hear about some of those. Allie, what do you have to say about that?
Well, as an 18-year-old girl in college, I have plenty of experience of falling into the fast fashion trends. TikTok Shop and Shein can really get the best of me, but I understand now, after all of our research, how detrimental that can be on my mental health and the world around me.
So to kind of give a general overview about mental health and how it impacts the fast fashion industry, really the biggest thing to pay attention to here is the consumer behavior. Really what that means is overconsumption can influence our moods and even cause our dopamine levels to rise and fall.
When researching, we found an increased number of Gen Z women find shopping an easy way to cope with their feelings around anxiety and depression. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, however. We've also found that people also develop shopping disorders pretty easily. This doesn't sound very serious, but it can be a very detrimental thing to happen to somebody. It's a very easy thing to just make a click and decide you want to buy something. It's often comparable to a drug addiction. It can become that serious.
Carolyn Mayer, with her PhD, she has a PhD in psychology. She said that those who become hooked on this behavior, fast fashion, are willing to do and pay whatever it takes to purchase what they want. When we see something, we want it. However, since most of the stuff we buy can be out of compulsion, we oftentimes will feel guilty and ashamed after the purchase, since the feelings of happiness are temporary, and we'll get into this later with some of the dopamine side effects.
So one of the biggest problems with fast fashion is that the brain finds it extremely hard to resist trends. Fast fashion heavily pertains to itself due to its ability of reinventing itself.
Your mind may also be dealing with a desire to project a certain image, to signal status, or to cope with unpleasant feelings through style choices. Many people will begin to feel left out if they are not wearing the latest trend. Therefore, the brain thinks they need the item as well in order to fit in with society.
Now, in looking at shopping as a whole, a lot of people see it as a form of entertainment, and that has to do a lot with dopamine. So we're going to go ahead and move in towards dopamine and how that it's impacted with fast fashion.
Yeah, dopamine is often one of the most overlooked things when it comes to fast fashion and social media in our modern world today. Dopamine is known as the feel-good hormone. It influences our daily actions and prompts us to consistently interact with different things that we enjoy. Throughout generations, humans were constantly faced with the challenge of in-person interactions until around the end of the 1900s, when technology and the internet and social media wasn't until later, but all of that really started to take place. Young adults, mostly ages 18 to 25, have been experiencing this prominently in their lives, and they're experiencing childhood and development with the use of technology and social media every day.
And we see dopamine impact our life on a day-to-day basis. It can affect our interpersonal relationships. We get dopamine from scrolling on social media or playing video games. But there's also things like going for a walk, reading a book, cooking, baking. There's a lot of things that are positive and negative that give you dopamine. And we find that our generation is very easily falling into the hole of the negative things that create dopamine rather than using our environment positively.
And we experience these dopamine hits through insufficient and instant, short-lived things like fast fashion. We want that dopamine rush again and again, so we keep buying and buying, not realizing the explicit factors we are putting on the environment, others, and ourselves. Fast fashion is intentionally designed to keep us coming back for more and more, but never being satisfied with what we have.
We often struggle with instant gratification. This is like the instantaneous feel-good response, something we get right before the outcome. Instant gratification is basically the same thing as retail therapy. It's a way that people make themselves feel better, and when we buy something, we experience a dopamine hit, which is what makes us keep coming back, especially with fast fashion.
So there was a research study at MIT that found that our brain's pleasure center gets activated more when we buy cheaper clothes. Now, new trends and marketing tactics have quite literally brainwashed us to seeing clothes as disposable, to be thrown away. In other words, we have to keep updating our closet and stay up to date with the latest trends. Due to social media, influencers never in the same thing twice, and they constantly are promoting new clothes. For example, Amazon.
So, overconsumption of fast fashion, it just keeps us unhappy and unsatisfied. A lot of people might think that when we want more of something that positive dopamine will hit us, but in reality, it's just we stay unsatisfied and keep wanting more. We can refer to this as cognitive dissonance. Here is a quote from Project CC about cognitive dissonance. What happens when you know in your heart that the fast fashion is terrible, but your brain is trapped in what is a vicious cycle of needing dopamine hits? You'll go through an internal conflict, convince yourself that supporting fast fashion isn't that bad. Try just to justify it, but buy that item anyway and feel bad about yourself.
Fast fashion creates a lot of environmental impacts. It seems that a lot of people that are involved in fast fashion know that there are environmental impacts occurring, but they don't truly know what is occurring. So to start it off, we've seen that around 85% of the clothing Americans consume is sent to landfills. That is about 3.8 billion pounds of clothes annually.
Yeah, one important thing to note here is the number of times a garment is worn has decreased by around 36% in the last 15 years, which isn't a lot of time at all. This allocates about 7 to 10 wears for an item of clothing, and then you just dispose of it, which really isn't, that great of a habit by any means. This lack of interest in the clothing industry, people are constantly buying, and is really trying to acknowledge that it's kind of forcing on yourself that, hey, it's okay to constantly buy clothes and then get rid of them as opposed to constantly wearing clothes that you already own.
Just to put that into perspective, it takes 700 gallons of water to make one cotton t-shirt, 2,000 gallons of water to produce a pair of jeans. And these uses of our resources are the things we need to think about.
These statistics blew my mind when we were researching. You never really know or think about how big of an impact your personal consumption habits have on the rest of the world.
And not only the impact, but fast fashion has such an extreme availability that it's very easy to impact, and it creates a large impact. The internet is full of encouraging micro trends because everybody wants to be unique and stand out in a world where everybody is looking.
We even see things like Pinterest for fashion inspiration. I know I get on Pinterest daily, and there's no limit to all types of fashion on there. The encouragement of a wide array of clothing is great for individuality of people, but it creates a lack of attachment to clothing, so people want to keep buying more and more, and people are just constantly being exposed to new items and trends, which adds to this.
These feelings of availability create lots of waste in our world because the clothes have to go somewhere. fast fashion companies are constantly making more clothing and more clothing than what is necessary, but it feeds the increasing obsession with getting new clothes.
And in addition to like the Pinterest thing, I know if you just like search, the entire link just like pops up. So
Yes.
it's so easy just
And
to
that's,
click.
like on Instagram too, they have it.
Yeah.
So an influencer will just like post and then you can tap to shop.
Yep, and then like you can literally just hit buy, and that's why like the problem is getting so bad is because how convenient and easy it is. And getting new clothing has always had like a great feeling. So when that feeling becomes easier and easier, people will strive for that feeling rather than the clothing itself.
I feel like another convenience factor is Apple Pay. Like
Oh,
used
yeah.
to, when you wanted to order something online, you would have to pull out your card, but now you can just like click pay and it's bought.
Yeah, so fast fashion is known for being cheap, convenient, as well as trendy. Due to this, young college students and adults alike find fast fashion attractive. Due to it being easily affordable, due to this, the high demand can cause a lot of waste and unnecessary harm to our environment.
Like Clayton was just saying, fast fashion is very resource intensive. The high demand of production of items, if we're constantly buying more and more, I mean, you have to think these factories are just not stopping. They are constantly producing items, constantly using water, energy, raw materials, and a lot of fossil fuels is what they run on. Garments are often made from synthetic materials, especially the cheaper items that fast fashion encourages. They don't really encourage good, sustainable resources to make the items rather than something that's just cheap and easy to make. These items don't biodegrade very well, and this leads to a lot of microplastics and waste in our environment.
Yeah, an easier way to understand this is circular consumer. It's a simple idea of someone that is stuck in a constant cycle of buying various clothing items, getting rid of them, and then buying more clothes once they've disposed of the clothes they once owned. This is bad because the person is contributing greatly to waste and pollution.
Researchers have found that the average American throws away approximately 80 pounds of clothing and textiles annually, occupying nearly 5% of landfill space. Now, kind of want to sit on this for just a moment. Think about it. 80 pounds. Like, that's a lot. I don't know how many articles of clothing you have to pile up to get to 80 pounds. I mean, I guess if you had like 30 pairs of jeans, then maybe you could get to 80 pounds, but that is just an excessive amount. And then 5% of landfill space. I don't know if you've ever seen a landfill. It's not very big. But it's very compact. So 5% sounds really small, but it's actually a significant number.
You also have to think about the average American is just throwing away the 80 pounds of clothing each year.
Yeah.
So like how many clothes do you have in your closet?
And that's every man, woman, and child. That is not just general people. And I just think that that's a crazy statistic.
And like if you think about it, the quality that these fast fashion like stores have, it's not
It's
good.
so bad.
So like it's all such like thin clothing, and like
Right.
80 pounds, that's like a ton.
And your
That's
clothing often, sorry.
No, go
the
ahead.
fast fashion often, when you get it, it's rarely exactly what you thought it was.
Yeah.
gonna
Oh, no,
be.
yeah.
It's,
So
it's
true.
whether it's sized wrong or the material just does not look as nice as it looked in the pictures.
Also, these companies, like, they're obviously focusing on quantity over quality. And so, as a consumer, you may go to these fast fashion companies because they're more affordable and you're looking for a long-term piece of clothing, but the materials are not made to last. So, although you may not want to wear it just 1 or 2 times, you can't because it breaks or it just falls apart.
So obviously we're college students too, so we know how accessible fast fashion is. I know I literally buy off Shein TikTok shop. I'm guilty of it too. It is the easiest way to get all the things you want, and the compulsion to buy the cheaper item that looks identical to the name brand version is just very strong.
Yeah, and TikTok, I feel like every time I go on TikTok, it swipes onto the TikTok shop and gives me like a 50% off.
Yeah,
I think
It
it's
tries
on
to make me buy
purpose.
something.
Yeah.
Like TikTok boosts the algorithm. Like if you post a TikTok with the shop, it is more likely to be seen by more people. So that only encourages creators to push fast fashion onto society. I just don't think that's very good.
And like they either get sent that item or they get paid from like
TikTok.
They get paid
Yeah,
commission
well,
just for you clicking on that
yeah.
link. If you open the TikTok shop link of the item, you don't even have to buy it. They're getting commission for it. They don't care about you or your spending habits at all. They are just trying to make their own money.
And this is something I've like really struggled with, is valuing quality over quantity. Our generation would rather just buy something cheap and instant, wear it once and then never think of it again. But older generations value quality over quantity. Their clothes are filled with clothes from 20 plus years ago. But these industries aren't designing their clothes to last long anymore either. Even an expensive brand like Lululemon, Aritzia, or Free People don't value quality. It's more expensive than something like Zara or ASOS, but their clothes don't last more than 2 years.
Yeah, and it's also just like so convenient. We're obviously all college students, we're busy with school. Some of us, like, we don't have time for a job. However, we also have to think about housing payments, food payments, anything else that comes with the college life, and it's a huge factor into why we want the cheap and fast option for these things, like clothes, skincare, shoes, jewelry, really like anything.
Being able to apply ourselves like to the people around us, we want to be able to do that as easy as possible. I feel like anyone would want to do that, and the fast fashion, just the damages outweigh the positives so much to yourself or others.
Yeah, you kind of have like this false image that you create as you like walk through the different websites and things like that, because you feel like, hey, you know, this is new, this is trendy, I need this in order to stand out from society. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like all of those are just obvious reasons, like just us being in the age range of our target audience, we understand. But even when I was researching, I was surprised at the amount of studies that people have, like, they've put their time and research into this, and they found that trust on these apps is a huge factor into why consumers are so like easily influenced to buy. So they talked about how apps like TikTok have created space for users to interact with one another, and that kind of assists the suppliers in building trust in the people who have the app, so they just see people they know, click the link, and then they buy it. It's that easy.
It's like it's the modern infomercial. Like, I mean, I remember watching TV growing up, and there was so many things that would get sold. It was like, you remember the Wubble Bubble Ball?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was crazy, and as a kid, it was really easy for them to develop that trust with us because we didn't know any better. But now that we've grown up, the market has adapted to us, and it now knows that we're all on TikTok. So it's just the modern
Just
version.
like grown so much.
Yeah.
Like it used to go from like 1 or 2 infomercials on TV, and now it's every
can't
single
escape.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Is an
You
ad.
can't get on TikTok without an ad
Right.
being on there.
And it, like, you don't think it affects you like right then and there, but I was like reading a study, and we spend more time scrolling on social media than we eat in a day, and any like time you spend more than that, like, it'll affect you in the long run. So like, it's crazy to think.
We better not hope there's any, harmful side effects to being on our phones, because we're all going down together. If that's the case.
There definitely is.
Yeah, so clearly all these aspects add to the reasons why people continue to use fast fashion, even when negative effects are very evident. There are reasonable motivations, so we just want to explain why instant gratification and the dopamine hit is not worth the detrimental side effects that come along with fast fashion. So I'm going to hand it over to Lily with some ways that we can improve this.
Yeah, so I feel like we've talked a lot about the negatives and why we need to fix it, but it's really hard just to like cut things cold turkey, especially when we are college students. We don't have a lot of income, even if any. So we're not trying to change your minds, but more to create awareness of the environmental and mental impacts that our generation is creating. So coming up with alternative habits that lower our use of fast fashion is one way to help this occurring issue. When I was doing my research, I found a lot about secondhand stores, like thrift stores. You can get like pricier clothing, but for a cheaper rate. It also offers like a diverse selection of styles that shoppers can choose from without compromising the conscience of their wallet.
So yeah, this shopping secondhand idea that she's talking about is not only more sustainable, but it's just more budget friendly. And the most important thing is buying something that lasts, that is budget friendly.
Yeah, so instead of just buying like an abundance of stuff, we should be buying things that last and that we can have for years to come. Majority of the items from like fast fashion sources such as Shein, Zara, TikTok Shop, they don't provide quality that lasts, and we only end up wearing them once or a short amount of time before the quality is like completely gone. I know a lot of people like order stuff for Halloween off like TikTok Shop. You're only gonna wear that once. And before you buy something off that site, maybe try going to like a thrift store and see if you can find just like something that works.
It's important to be very aware that sustainable fashion is typically much more expensive than fast fashion, which is normally why we gravitate towards shopping fast fashion. But shopping sustainable, you're supporting better wages, working conditions for laborers, and improved environmental outcomes. Plus, you'll be wearing these items for a lot longer, maybe even forever.
Yeah, so by implementing these practices, you can fight fast fashion and support cleaner, greener, and more socially conscious moves in the fashion industry. This is going to make a difference with ethical clothing and seek out sustainable brands or thrift stores when you need to. So, Chase, I know you've been thinking of some ways to improve as well.
Yeah, so some things that we can do, we can just educate ourselves and others on what fast fashion is, and it's not what it seems. And also just like doing a little research on where you're buying from and how the clothes are produced and how they're made, because that has a lot of environmental impacts and impacts that we can't see firsthand. We can also remove different distractions that cause the instantaneous response to purchasing something or just participating in fast fashion, like deleting Shein off of your phone or deleting different fast fashion stores that you can get off the App Store. Don't follow the lead of influencers, celebrities, or other social media personalities, and rewear your old clothes, use hand-me-downs, go to thrift stores. You don't have to buy a new outfit for every event. I'm gonna hand it over to Clayton. He's got a few more.
Yeah, so a couple more ways, kind of like Lily mentioned earlier, go thrifting or use hand-me-downs. Really, there is no need to go out and excessively buy all these clothes. But understand like your motivations as to why you're doing this. Kind of see, okay, I'm comparing myself to this person, that's why I'm buying all this. That'll really just be a good way to kind of help you prevent falling into the trap of fast fashion.
Absolutely. Touching on what Chase said about re-wearing old clothes and not having a new outfit for every event, I think a great resource for like college girls, a lot of girls have Instagrams where they rent their clothes or just you can buy like secondhand, and it's a lot cheaper and you're also just getting more use out of that item. Because typically it's a higher quality item too.
Yeah, I think it's also just really important to find joy in other things than just buying clothing or fast fashion. Retail therapy is probably the best way to put it. Things like exercising, meditation, really anything. Just try and get yourself in enjoyable situations that don't involve clothing, because it just doesn't necessarily need to be from that. Or find different ways for you to curate your own clothing. Like personally, I'm going to ask for a sewing machine for Christmas, because I know that sometimes like the shirts I buy are too long, so I like often cut them like the one I'm wearing right now. But instead that creates a non-professional look. But if I could sew my item, then I could create a clean hem, and I can have the item that I want and also have the fit that I want, yet I bought it at a thrift store price. And I think that's very important to create the connection to your own item of clothing, because you were the one that you altered it. You're part of the creation process.
Another thing that I was just like thinking of, shop in person. Like shopping online, it's so easy, it's so convenient, but think about the packaging that comes with it, the gas that UPS is using up, and it's just...
I work at a retail store, and like when the truck that drops off all of our items, when we get clothing, I kid you not, it's a box of 30 t-shirts and that are individually wrapped in a bag of plastic. The amount of plastic that we throw away is crazy, and it's just not at all necessary. There's just a lot of business shortcuts that people also don't acknowledge, like to keep their items looking the best of the best. But what does that piece of plastic in between a t-shirt that looks exactly the same as the t-shirt
like,
on
what
top
is
of
that?
it? What's the point of that? Why did you need to individually package it?
I feel like also shopping in person, you're able to be more mindful and be like, do I really like this? Like, it just seems more real. It seems like you're actually spending your money, so you're
You actually have to swipe your card.
yeah, you're more likely to think like, okay, like, do I need this?
Like, I know I've like bought off TikTok Shop and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I have to pay $30 in shipping. I'm just gonna get more items.
Yeah.
Like, it's just stuff like that. Whereas if I was in store, I would not be getting
Right.
$30 more of items just because I have to pay for shipping.
Also, if you were in store, like, you wouldn't be buying a chamoy pickle kit. Like, if you saw it on TikTok.
And I don't think we mentioned this earlier. About 1 in every 4 items that are returned from online purchases get sent straight to landfills because it's cheaper for the company to just throw it away than to repackage it and introduce it again into the market. And
Wait.
things like online shopping really messes that up because you often want to return because you have no idea how the item's going to fit.
Yeah. Well, I would say also like in-person returns too, because like I worked at Sam's for 2 summers. We would have clothes that we're no longer selling that people are returning, and it's like, what do we do with it? We take it to the back and we dispose of it.
So through all of this, we want to ultimately explain to you that we understand where you're coming from buying off fast fashion, and instead of trying to completely change your mind and habits, we just want to lessen the bad effects and adapt the way we go about it.
At the end of the day, we aren't trying to convince you to stop buying from these brands like TikTok Shop, Zara, ASOS. We want you to just realize and understand the effects it has on both those who directly participate and those who do not.
Exactly. Like, we've all found ourselves participating. And that's not the issue. It's just acknowledging what you're doing when you do participate.
Yeah, so instead of buying something right when you see it, try to collect all items and order once to limit your carbon footprint. So like, don't make 3 different Amazon orders. If you know you need something from Amazon, maybe wait and try to order everything at once so it all comes in the same box or whatever. And then consider sustainable fashion, and it will last longer and it will be worth the money in the long run.
All right, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for coming in and speaking about this week's topic of overconsumption and fast fashion. And thank you all so much for listening. I hope we made you think about your own overconsumption and raised awareness for harmful environmental impacts and damage to your mental health that fast fashion causes. We'll see you for next week's episode.